Welcome to the 2011 State of the City Address and Luncheon hosted by the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. We're pleased that over 140 people are in attendance this year, which demonstrates to me that our business community, our public officials, and citizens alike are taking an earnest interest in the future of Oregon City. In just a few minutes, we'll hear from Oregon City's Mayor, Doug Neely, to present his first State of the City Address. Good afternoon. I'm Amber Holbeck, Executive Director for the Oregon City Chamber. This event today is being recorded by Willamette Falls Media Center and will be broadcast to the public via local cable access. Thank you, Melody Ashford, manager of Willamette Falls Television, for making this possible. We're fortunate to have with us a number of distinguished guests representing various levels of government and public service. Please stand when you're introduced and remain standing. And will the audience please hold your applause until all have been announced. Representing the City of Oregon City, Mayor Doug Neely, City Commissioner Betty Mumm, Police Chief Mike Conrad, Department Heads Nancy Ide, City Recorder, Scott Archer, Community Services, David Wimmer, Finance, Nancy Krushauer, Public Works, Jim Leffler, Human Resources, Tony Conkle, Community Development. And representing education, Oregon City School District Superintendent, and I don't know that he made it yet, Roger Rada. Roger, are you in the house? Okay. Oregon City School District Human Resources Director and incoming Superintendent, Larry Didway. Clackamas Community College Board of Education, Chuck Clemens, Jane Reed, Ron Adams, and Carlotta Collette, who's also known as Metro Councilor Carlotta Collette. Representing Clackamas Fire District Number 1, Director Thomas Joseph, Chief Ed Kirchhoffer. Representing Clackamas County, and I don't know if she's made it yet, Ann Leininger, County Commissioner Ann Leininger. And representing U.S. Congressman Kurt Schrader's office, Allison Craig. Help me welcome all of these folks. Thank you for being a part of our community. And at this time, it is my pleasure to ask our Oregon City Chamber Board Chair, Hope Luce, from It Figures Bookkeeping and TLC Carpet Cleaning, to join me for some special introductions. Hope.
Thank you, Amber. 10 businesses this year are taking advantage of a premier opportunity for members called the Chairman's Circle. A maximum of 12 chamber members every year may join the group. For one payment-inclusive donation, these members are highlighted as supporters throughout the full range of chamber events all year long, which provides an alternative to sponsoring event by event. It's my privilege to recognize our 2011 Chairman's Circle businesses. Would these members please stand to be recognized, and would our audience please hold your applause until everyone's been introduced. The Abernathy Center, Accurate Collection Service, BCT, Danielson Hilltop Mall, Lewis and Clark Bank, Oregon City News, Providence Willamette Falls Medical Center, and West Coast Bank. And unable to join us today is B&B Leasing, Oregon City Garbage, Community Solutions for Clackamas County. Thank you for your generosity and partnership. It's also my pleasure to work with a talented group of people on our Chamber's Board of Directors who are in the audience today. Please stand to be recognized. Again, hold your applause. Tim Shea with CCC's Small Business Development Center. Vicki Smith with Clackamas Community College. Past Board Chair Mark Ellingson with Lewis and Clark Bank. Chair-elect Mike McCarroll with Minuteman Press. And Roger Rada is not here at this time. Okay, well, he's an appointed member of our board as well. So thank you all for serving our chamber so well.
Thank you, Hope. I sure appreciate your leadership and your dedication to Oregon City. And I'm pleased to recognize today our presenting sponsor. Thank you, PGE, for stepping up to support Oregon City's State of the City Luncheon and caring about what happens in Oregon City and around the region. Portland General Electric has had a long-standing relationship with our area. Since their longest-running hydroelectric plant or project, the Sullivan Plant, was completed at Willamette Falls in 1889. Over the years, the relationship between PGE and its constituent communities has grown even stronger. And with us today to bring greetings on behalf of PGE is Sonny Radcliffe. Sonny was appointed Director of PGE Governmental Affairs in January 2010 and oversees Portland General Electric's federal, regional, state, and local government policy matters. Sonny's responsibilities include public policy development and analysis relating to a variety of government entities, including the Oregon Legislature and the United States Congress. In her 10 years with PGE, she's provided leadership in developing and executing successful public policy positions on behalf of customers and employees, shareholders, and community. Sonny serves on the board of the Volunteers of America, the Northwest Energy Coalition, and volunteers with the Portland Symphonic Girls Choir. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from the University of Washington and a law degree from Northwestern School of Law from Lewis and Clark College. Here in Oregon City, Sonny's been very involved in the Willamette Locks Oregon Solutions project team, an effort that actually secured $1.8 million to restore the locks for transportation and recreational use. Help me welcome Miss Sonny Radcliffe.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Amber, and greetings to Mayor Neely, council members, fellow chamber members, and guests. It's a real pleasure to be here today representing Portland General Electric, and we're very pleased to be a sponsor of today's State of the City address in partnership with the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, this being, of course, Mayor Doug Neely's first State of the City address. I would like to take a minute to introduce my coworkers who are eager and excited to be here with us today and who work hard to take care of all of our Oregon City customers. Christine Dunn, if you want to wave, is our Central and Eastern Regional Manager. Bill Mullenberg, General Foreman at our Oregon City Line Center. Patrick White, Key Customer Manager for the City of Oregon City. Garrett Harris, Energy Efficiency Specialist. And Annette Madsen, who is our Government Affairs Liaison to the City of Oregon City, and well known, I know, to you all. She's also the chair of the Chamber's Government and Economic Affairs Committee. And just arriving, Scott Guptill, who's with PGE. So much for a quiet little entrance. Who is with our Corporate Communications Group and is a member of the Clackamas Heritage Partners Board of Directors. On behalf of myself and all of my coworkers at PGE, we would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your business and for all that you do to make Oregon City a great place to live and work. I think you're probably well aware we have a very long and rich history with this community, and we're very proud to be a part of it. PGE started here at Willamette Falls 122 years ago, and was the site of the first long-distance transmission of electricity in the United States. Despite what Niagara Falls claims, we know this to be true. And today, we're still here. Our office on Warner Milne Road has been there since 1950, and about 115 of our employees are housed there. We've been at the table as part of the Willamette Falls National Heritage Area Coalition, worked hard on the Locks Coalition. We've got employees volunteering with various nonprofits based in Oregon City, including the Clackamas County Children's Center, Clackamas Heritage Partners, and Oregon City Youth Sports. And we're very pleased that we can be so engaged and involved in this community. Of course, we've grown a lot over the last 122 years. Today, our service territory encompasses the state's economic engine, accounting for 70% of the state's GDP. We have well over 800,000 customers at this point, and we serve a population area of over 1.6 million people. And as the communities we serve continue to grow, we've been addressing how to best deliver and plan for the future energy needs of our customers. The challenge, of course, is to generate and deliver electricity to this growing population in an increasingly sustainable way, keeping in mind that the decisions we make now impact people's lives for decades to come. And in planning for our customer needs, we are focused more than ever on trying to align our decisions with our customers' values. One priority is that we provide safe, reliable power at a reasonable price. We're very well aware that that businesses care about the size of their energy bills, and that keeping our costs contained is one of the ways we work to contribute to the desperate need in our state to attract and grow business. And energy efficiency, I want to take a minute to highlight, is one way that we're really striving to meet the growing energy supply needs. We're working with the Energy Trust of Oregon to do outreach to businesses, letting them know about rebates and other assistance currently available to them. And I'll just point out Garrett again, if you wouldn't mind waving. Garrett specializes in lining up business customers with those programs. There's a little form on your table. If you're interested, you could fill that out and give it to Garrett today, and you could make arrangements for an energy efficiency consultation that can really be quite valuable and provide good, useful information. Energy efficiency doesn't do it all, of course. People are also thinking about how we keep the lights on and protect the environment and deal with the state's renewable energy standard, renewable resources being very much on people's minds. To that end, we're increasing our renewable resource sources. We completed last year construction of our Bigelow Canyon Wind Farm, which is out in Sherman County in eastern Oregon. It's the largest renewable project in our power portfolio. It's about 450 megawatts, really quite substantial. And well, you can't talk about renewables without mentioning hydro, of course, since we started here at Willamette Falls with the Sullivan plant. And we do have hydro resources throughout the state. They meet about 20% of our customers' needs. We have fossil in our fleet as well, gas and coal, and you may be, who's not aware, I suppose, of our Boardman plant and the Boardman 2020 plan. Folks worked very hard over the past year to come up with a plan to take that plant off coal by 2020, and we had a great deal of help and support from people throughout the state and certainly here in this area. So we appreciate all of that help, and we're pleased to say that at the end of the day, we do have a viable plan. We're just waiting for federal approval, which we do expect to come in May. And we'll be working with a wide variety of stakeholders on what will replace that resource, trying to make sure that what we bring on is sustainable and cost-effective, because we're always concerned about rates and keeping costs reasonable for customers. All that said, we plan to be here for another 122 years, partnering with you all and folks throughout our service territory. We really look forward to collaborating with Mayor Neely, the Oregon City Chamber, and all of you, the business community, as we work together to ensure Oregon City's and the region's economic engine continues to grow, that we see an increase in businesses, an increase in jobs, and an increase in prosperity for everyone here in this region. Thank you so much for working closely with us towards a more sustainable energy and economic future, and I'm really pleased that I've had this opportunity to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunny, and thank you, PGE, for your sponsorship and involvement in this community. Before we move to the main attraction, I want you to make note of the index cards on each table. Please neatly write any question you might have for Mayor Neely. Now, city staff, I see the snickers. Let's keep it on point. But otherwise, our staff, both Julie and Karen, will go around and pick up cards from you. If you have them, if you have questions you'd like to ask, just kind of wave it during the speech, and they'll come around and pick it up. Mayor Doug Neely has been an Oregon City resident for 21 years, along with his wife, Beth. Together, they've been married 48 years. The heritage of this community is clearly important to them as they chose to live in a historic home, the Howell House, and were involved in such activities as the Old Home Forum, Oregon Trail Foundation, and McLaughlin Memorial Association, to name just a few. Beyond his extensive involvement in Oregon City, Mayor Neely has a rich work history. As a statistician, he made contributions in agricultural research for developing countries, specifically some in Asia and Africa. He is a professor, I think, at Portland State University. No, he's not. He teaches classes, though. He teaches classes and owns his own business, International Statistical Training and Technical Services. He's a graduate of Grant High School in Portland, Portland State University, and finally received a PhD in statistics from North Carolina State University. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to introduce to you Mayor Doug Neely to present his first State of the City address. I don't know if this will extend tall enough. Chris, can you pick him up?
On teaching at Portland State, my contract says I think it's a junkie professor, an adjunct professor. I'm not a professor at Portland State. I heard, I saw some of the staff members, I think, are trying to come up with questions. I do want to point out that although we're called a city commission, we're actually a city council. We do not have a strong mayor position. One of the few powers I have specified in the charter is that I can determine the order of the agenda. There's not a whole lot more than that. And of course, we depend tremendously on our staff and so forth. So almost any questions I get, I will identify the appropriate staff member to direct them to. And if I get one from one of the staff members about their own department, I'll be sure to direct it right back to that particular staff member. Of course, the concern I think the public would have about the city is the kind of services that are offered, and also the financial condition of the city and the ability to provide those services. Now, Oregon City is very fortunate. At this time of its history, its financial situation is pretty good, better than most of probably of the municipalities in the metro area during this period of a severe recession. Back in, well, I knew I should have worn my glasses, but that's okay, I'll find it. Back in 2005, excuse me, about the time shortly after Alice Norris took the reins of the government by becoming mayor, it was identified that some major things had to change in Oregon City, and one of them was to try to seek additional funds. And the decision was made early on to close the Hilltop Urban Renewal Agency and have some of those funds then come back into the general fund. There were major cuts that were made in services during that period of time. The library's hours dropped from, I think that was close to 60 hours per week, and dropped to 23. We had to let certain staff go, which affected really our the ability of what was then called the Citizens Involvement Committee, and also the neighborhood associations didn't get the kind of support they had because we had to reduce staff during that period of time. We went out about, well, let's say, actually we went out for a levy about 2007. It wasn't a levy, it was an annexation request from the residents to annex to Fire District 1, Clackamas County Fire District 1 for services. We had a contract with them, but those funds were insufficient to keep long-term fire services. When we did that, we told the residents that the city would still levy amount of money in excess of what we had when we had the fire services, but that we tried to limit that to less than 99 cents per thousand. Well, the annexation passed by well over 2/3 support, thanks largely to Alice Norris pulling together a team to go out and deliver the message. Later on, we had the county was running into fiscal problems and decided to put to a vote the formation of library districts. And this went out to the people. It put library district funding on an independent level, and the administration of those library districts would go back to the city jurisdictions from whence they came. Well, Oregon City, that passed also by a 2/3 vote, and Oregon City is actually the center of the largest district, both in terms of population and in terms of area, if I'm not mistaken. And I've gotten a nod, so I am not mistaken. When this passed, when we were able to really stabilize our funding and actually have some increased funding for some of our services, one of the areas that we focused on was police services. And we've had, from 1980 really until about 7 years ago, our police department was right around the low 30s, and the services per 1,000 were extremely low. We've been able to add 7 new police officers to the force. I was honored to be able to swear in the 40th police officer at the first council meeting that I could do that kind of stuff at. Anyway, we had two of those positions were funded by a federal, what we call the federal COPS grant. One of those positions was actually funded by TriMet, and then the other 4 positions general fund. So there's been a tremendous increase in those particular services. There's other things that happened that occurred. One of them was that the chief decided to have a different structure in terms of the way the police services were provided. And he recommended, and the commission accepted what was essentially a 4-day, 10-hour shift rotation on the police services. And this permitted a large overlap in time for police services between the 2 shifts when we have the most serious crime problems in the late night period of time. And has been very, very beneficial to the city. Now the police services, they were very confined to their facilities, and of course, as you know, and I'll come back to it later, we did go ahead and build a new city hall, and for the purpose of getting our city staff into an area that was more suitable. Many of our senior staff were located in trailers behind the city hall, old city hall that people would see from the front, but I don't think it was recognized the kinds of buildings our staff were centered in. When we moved, there was able to do some expansion of the police department, not as much as we were hoping because of mandated conditions that needed to be dealt with in terms of a police department. That permitted additional storage and various other things that could be done there, and also the improvement of the area in which the police services were provided. The new city hall, I hope everybody has seen it, was basically funded out of urban renewal funds. And it was a controversial situation, but we'd been in a city hall that was really insufficient in terms of quality for the city staff. We subsequently moved there, and we had far better conditions for the city staff, and we also were able to develop a area for storage of records that we hadn't had, a centralized area of records that we had not had before. The City Hall, although we moved into it more than a year ago, this last year it got recognized for LEED certification. That was silver, I believe, getting a nod there. And those activities were important, and although we still have insufficient space, I think, for our police officers, our housing situation for our staff is far, far better than it was before. Moving into the City Hall, our city recorder was responsible for a lot of the organization of the things that occurred there. And in that period of time, we've gone ahead and we've gone to a more sustainable situation. We have web streaming, and this web streaming services not only the city commission meetings, but many of the advisory committee meetings. It's being extended to what is now the Citizens Involvement Council. Because of that funding, because of the commitment, we've been able to give greater strength to the neighborhood associations and to the CIC than they had before. We also have a website that people can go to, and we've also moved to a paperless, moving more and more to paperless activities. I probably was one of the few people that demanded for a while that I get paper copies of the agenda and all the items that were on it. Well, a couple of us were slow on the learning curve, but we're now all using the access to the website to go ahead and read our documents, working on them both at home and then, of course, in front of the city committee chambers. We bring up those documents before us. There, in terms of, and that was thanks. Many of that was thanks to our city recorder, Nancy Ide. We've also had the paperless activities going on in terms of online job applications for positions in the city. This is under Jim Leffler's position, where he is the human resource director, and he also, in terms of those job applications, able to trace down the various recommendations and so forth associated offline. Our planning department under Tony Cockle also does applications online now. And in that department, we've had some major changes over the year. We've gone through major code changes. I don't know how many of you go down Glen Oak Road, but a few years ago, there was an application which was approved for a multi-housing development that was there. While we did have code conditions that apply to the removal of trees, they only applied to the removal of trees in areas where the buildings would not occur. The actual building envelope, we did not have that. Well, what happened is we had a multiple housing project go on in there. Out of 800 trees, I believe 785 fell within that building envelope. They were all cut down. And there was no mitigation for these trees. Well, this tree code has been changed so that any trees that are removed within the building envelope are mitigated by getting additional trees in areas that are probably environmentally more challenged, but in areas that will improve our general area. That particular area is really a kind of a ugly spot if you go by it, because a few row houses were built, but with the failure of the housing market, most of them were not. And so you have their bare fields. We have policies now that won't occur. We've also gone to LiDAR imagery, and this imagery is laser-based imagery, satellite imagery that we get that identify areas in terms of their steep slopes, the ability to develop on them, and also determines where some of the fault lines are. I think it's extremely positive. It helps us determine where we can safely build structures and where we cannot. I wasn't too pleased with it when I found out that the Bolton Fault went right through my backyard, but that was something that I wasn't aware of, but that's what the LiDAR imagery found. In terms of, we're also in the process of doing inventories of historic structures in Oregon City for citing them as locally designated structures. This hasn't been done since the 1970s. You might go by houses in Oregon City, some of the old ones that have plaques on them. These were houses that were identified on our local inventory as historically significant or architecturally significant houses. There are some restrictions that are placed on these houses. it's owner agreed upon. You don't designate a house unless the owner agrees to do it. But it does protect the exterior. And so we keep those exterior in essentially the condition they were at when they're put on the local inventory. Well, nothing's happened since 1970 in terms of the listing, and several houses, just because it's been a long period of time, would qualify for that listing, and that inventory is occurring now. A couple of other things that we've gone through is the designation of urban and rural reserves in the metro area. The decision was made some time ago at Metro. We had to identify those areas in which urban expansion could occur, probably would occur in the future, and at the same time preserve our important rural areas. And so there was a tremendous effort put on at the county levels, at the city levels, at every level to identify where these particular areas were located. Oregon City has certain urban reserves that are now identified where urban expansion can occur. There are other areas that are protected in terms of their rural significance, and the intention is to really have those identified for a 40 or 50-year build-out. There are some areas that didn't get designated at all, and probably one of the challenges we face is to work on a vision in Oregon City that comes up with the use of those urban reserve areas, the development of those that can preserve both the community of Oregon City in terms of its vision, but also the vision of some of our rural communities adjacent to us. Probably the most important one is Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek has formed a hamlet. Beaver Creek wanted to be designated as a rural reserve, but there's sufficient amount of housing, residential type housing in that area that put it at a classification that the decision was made that couldn't happen. But we hope we can come up with a development that meets both the visions of the Beaver Creek community and of Oregon City in the process, even though it's something that may not happen until the longer term future. If we start identifying those things early on, I think there will be a tremendous benefit to us. One of the other things that we have done is we've also hired a new building official, something that we weren't able to do for some time. And that's been in the program then of under Dan Drendlow, our planning director. I use terms that everybody understands. We have our departments that were renamed community this and community that, and one of them is the community services department, and all our departments provide community services, so I could never figure that out. So when I refer to these departments, I'm referring to them by names that most people can identify them by. The Public Works Department, well, there have always been improvements that are occurring in this city due to efforts in the Public Works Department. And in this last year, we had the, what was the historic freight station in Oregon City. It was a station that had been moved actually all the way to Portland, Oregon, and it apparently was scheduled for demolition. Somebody informed former Mayor Dan Fowler about this. This is before he was mayor. And he realizes the significance of that particular structure, and he brought it back to Oregon City. And the Oregon City Commission decided that old station would serve as a great station for an Amtrak station. This last commission went ahead and they approved the purchase of it, and Dan Fowler moved it to the current location next to the Amtrak station. While we haven't yet identified the specific uses the station would be used for, it is a great station to have. Probably one of the things that we'll be working on is trying to, if there is a rapid rail system that comes in between Eugene and Portland, to assure that our station is, in fact, part of that particular system. Other things, For ages, people in the Park Place neighborhood have been complaining about the fact that Holcomb Road was an extremely dangerous place to walk on. We had Holcomb School up above there, and we had this extensive space within our city that were served by no sidewalks. This last year, we connected the sidewalk to the rest of the system there on Holcomb Road, and it was a major achievement. We had also funding from the state's stimulus funding that came to the state. The state allocated monies for two major projects, one that we had identified some time before, and that was the disintegrating promenade wall. If you walk along McLaughlin Promenade above Old Town, there's this great stone wall that was built during the boy, it's escaping me, and I don't know why. The WP area projects of the Great Depression. Well, it was deteriorating. Rebar was being exposed on the concrete railings that were there, and it was really becoming a ugly piece for something that was so historic, and had been recognized as a historic structure by our Historic Review Board. Well, we got stimulus money to fix that particular concrete wall. And if you look at it, you'll look at a certain portion of it at the bottom portion where you have concrete over the rocks, and you'll see that there are cracks forming. Well, that was a concern for several of us, and then we found out that, looking at it, the same cracks had formed on the old structure. It's just the nature of the material. There are a few things that we had to repair, but in fact, it has been put into the kind of condition that existed at the time, but showing the nature of the stone and everything. It was an extremely important project for the city. One project that finally came to a close, I think people that had businesses in this area thought it took forever, but was Warner Milne Road, where we had Warner Milne coming up. And then when you came to Warner Milne Road, down to Molalla, and if you wanted to continue on to, for example, Bank of the West on Molalla, you had to do a jigsaw movement in order to do it. They are now aligned. The projects in many of these areas take longer than people anticipate, and one of the reasons that's true is that a lot of the other infrastructure there is not always well identified in terms of where the old sewer pipes, the old water lines, and so forth are. And Public Works has taken this policy, which is a reasonable one, when you're going to ever do some major construction on the road, what you do, unless you have relatively new infrastructure in terms of sewage, wastewater, storm wastewater, and potable water systems coming through there, and they're old. You not only fix the road, you fix that particular infrastructure. And sometimes you just don't know where that infrastructure is. You think you know, you have maps, but they weren't all that good. But these projects are done, and probably when they're done in a major way, they won't have to be redone for a long time unless we got some kind of a fiber optics group or something that wants to tear up the road and put something in there. Actually, any of the other utilities that come in are given sufficient notification, so if they needed to do some work in there, they can do it in the time that we're doing the construction. The other important thing was projects that are coming on with our pavement improvement maintenance fee. Those of you who get utility bills from the city saw that utility jump up a year or two ago. Well, the City Commission decided to put in another fee because a lot of our streets were coming to the point of the end of their lives, and we needed to have a maintenance fee to go ahead and do this. And I got a lot of phone calls when people saw their utility bills jump up. But when I was doing a little bit of campaigning this last year, went to one house and he came up and he said, "Well, I'll tell you something. That pavement's maintenance fee really irritated me. But then when I saw what they were doing to Leland Road, I didn't think it was such a bad idea." So we've got this major project that's still ongoing, but a major pavement resurfacing and formation of curbs and so forth along Leland Road. And we were able to do that at this time because of that pavement maintenance fee. Another major project that's coming on is due to the Oregon's Jobs and Transportation Act, in which a lot of funds were directed to what's called the Jug Handle Project. And this is a project that will reconfigure the intersection of Washington Street and 213 in such a manner that it won't have to be signalized anymore. People can get onto it and off of it, basically through right-hand turns. It's kind of like a clover leaf, except Washington Street is going to go under 213 Street. It's going to be a major period of construction. Most of it will be at night. It's going to be over, I believe, is it a 2-year period? Is that correct, Nancy? Yeah, Nancy Krushauer, Public Works Director. It's about a 2-year work project. They're going to schedule it so most of the traffic will not see this construction equipment on the road during the normal cycle. There will be a period of time when we're putting Washington Street under that they're going to have to bring in a bridge. It's going to be a prefabricated bridge. And we are told it's only going to take 4 days to put that bridge in place. So there will be a period of time over a year from now when in fact that access to 205 will be closed, but I think the efforts will be directed to get in that on a weekend period. So we'll minimize the impact on that. A lot of people have been saying, well, gee, you're doing the Arch Bridge closure and you're doing this 213 all at the same time. Well, the Arch Bridge closure was a decision that was made a long time ago to improve the various old bridges in the state. That project is also going to be approximately a 2-year project, and they're going to overlap substantially. But we're going to use that period of time in very constructive ways. We've received we have or will receive a total of $2.5 million for Main Street, in which we're going to make it more pedestrian friendly, more bicycle friendly, and also convert it into a two-way street. Now, a lot of the concern, legitimate concern, has been about, well, what about parking on Main Street when you do that? We had a parking study done, and it turns out in the final completion of that project, which will include, in terms of parking allocation, will include the other streets going onto Main Street, 8th and so forth, that we'll actually have an increase of 3 or 4 parking spaces in the Main Street area. Part of that parking study also indicates that we need to have more parking spaces up on the bluff. People accessing Main Street from the elevator and so forth can have parking above. We're also going to put in periods of time that are more of some of the 8-hour meter parking that's down there will be converted to 2. We had a lot of the business owners saying if we could just simply have those spaces available so we get more cars through there in a given day, it'll be a benefit to the business. So this has been something that has been well thought out and well planned with input from the Main Street business community in the process. Mentioned already the Arch Bridge closure. The $2.5 million really, I don't think I'll have too much from our Public Works Director that some of the projects that have come into Oregon City that involve the Oregon Department of Transportation, the Oregon Department of Transportation has proved on some of these projects a very difficult agency to work with. The Arch Bridge is not one of those projects. They've worked with us, they've talked with us. Part of the $2.5 million, or probably most of it, is coming because they've supported us making the appropriate developments on Main Street that we need to. So when the Arch Bridge opens up, it'll make Main Street open up also. And they've been a tremendous agency to work with in this particular project. The other thing I wanted to mention was the use of the elevator. Over I've served on the commission for up until last year, a period of 12 years. And in probably the first 6 of those years, I could look at the elevator usage one year to another. They used to plot them out for us on a yearly basis. And there was this continuous decline in the elevator usage. This has turned around dramatically in the last 4 years. Part of it is due to the fact that during the summer we've actually have longer elevator operating hours. Part of it, I think, has a lot to do with what's happened on Main Street. A lot more people in my neighborhood. I'm just up there off 12th Street a little ways. She mentioned the Howell House. Actually, there are 3 Howell houses. My Howell House is on 12th Street. It's across from Barclay Park. But I'm in this general neighborhood here, and I think a lot more people are going down Main Street as pedestrians and so forth to utilize the various restaurants and so forth that have been built. I'm going to come back to that later, but I did want to mention that there's been this tremendous increase in elevator usage in these last 4 years, and it's even been more dramatic in this last year with the increased hours of operation. One of the Parks and Recreation Department under Scott Archer. Scott Archer also serves as our assistant city manager. He is also responsible as our lead point person in our city hall movement. But the reason we originally brought him in was to be our Parks and Recreation director, and he's done a tremendous job. And several things have occurred in this particular year. We've had an expansion of West Leland Park. It's a park that's located off of Leland Road shortly before it enters the county area. There's been an expansion of that area during that period of time. We've bought new land actually off of Glen Oak Road, just immediately south of the properties owned by the high school. It's going to be future parkland. We'll go through a planning process to determine the kinds of equipment and so forth that needs to go in there. We received a grant from the state for improvements at Kanema Children's Park. It's a small park. We've also had the Metro working with us to a part of their area adjacent to the park can also be used for city recreation purposes. We've had partnerships with Oregon City High School in terms of the construction of various facilities on some of our parks. The school has come to us with these proposals. It's been funding, and we've approved funding for them through one of our grant programs that we have in the city. The other things that have occurred here, and they're really dealing with the non-parks and rec activities. He's currently serving as our, I guess, our city manager pro tem. Our city manager is on vacation to Hawaii. I plan to talk to him when he comes back about his missing this particular meeting where I give him my first State of the City address. Anyway, under also his purview is code enforcement. Nobody wants code enforcement. It used to be under Public Works, and I think Nancy must have just objected very strongly to it. And then Scott Archer got thrown code enforcement, and he's having to deal with code enforcement issues. I think it ought to be given to the police chief personally. Do you agree? He's shaking his head. No, nobody wants. I think it should be put directly under the city manager. What do you think? What do you think? Anyway, nobody wants code enforcement. As I said, he's been point man for many of the projects. Challenges that we're going to face, several in the Parks Department. Everybody knows the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center has been closed for a better part of, probably going on 2 years now. That's a city facility. And we've had some consultants come in and give us some recommendations, but any recommendations and a series of recommendations, not only one, but any one we decide to pursue is going to cost money. And we don't really have it at this time. The Ermatinger House is really a challenged facility. This is the only Hudson's Bay structure in the United States. And of course, Hudson's Bay fur trade was an important area in the early period. Somebody giving me, where's Karen Moore? I got how many minutes? 5. I got 5 minutes. Okay. But it is an important historic structure. And it's a structure that John McLaughlin, when it was built for Dr. Ermatinger back in 1845, I believe it was, John McLaughlin said it was an inferior building, it would not stand. Well, we want to make sure that he's still proven wrong, and it is having some difficulties, serious difficulties, that we've got to figure out how to address. And another challenge that we have here, of course, is the Carnegie. The Carnegie isn't a challenge in terms of its structure. It's an excellent structure that was renovated I think probably something like 10 or 12 years ago. A wonderful structure, but one of the negative things that happened was that the Danielsons went ahead and after being a great landlord for us, we leased space in Danielson's store for many, many years. I think he kept the lease level the same, but they had to go ahead and do something about the site. He was giving us warnings for a period of several years there, and we weren't doing anything about it. We were staying there. It was comfortable. And finally, the notice came, I can't do this forever. Wasn't that essentially it? And we had not built another facility. We had sought bonds to do so. We failed to do so. In any case, we had to move down to the Carnegie because we had no other site to operate off of. And even though it's operating under a smaller facility, most people are getting books there through online applications, and the books are coming from different libraries to services. Still, 75 to 80% of the people using that library are still using it, even though that they've gone to a smaller facility. One of the big challenges, though, is to find another facility. Eastham, for various reasons, did not work. I'm going to go a little faster here, but I'll sort of ignore her. Yeah, well, I kind of covered that. What I did want to do was talk about economic development. Dan Drentlaw is our economic development person, and we've been working very, very closely with the Main Street program and Lloyd Purdy. The Main Street program has been a tremendous program. Those of you who are on Main Street know that. Lloyd Purdy, our Main Street manager, has done an excellent job and is continuing to do an excellent job. We hope that we're going to be in a position to approve an economic development district so that his work can extend on for indefinitely ultimately, but at least for an extended period of time. And I did want to recognize here him in many ways. I think it's Tuesday at the Marriott Hotel. He's being recognized by the Daily Journal of Commerce, where they recognize yearly major newsmakers in the last year in the region. Lloyd Purdy is going to be recognized at that particular ceremony. We've got recognition. I think one of only 2 nationally recognized downtown sites in the state of Oregon that are recognized by a federal program in terms of Main Street programs. And the state of Oregon, Lloyd, I'm going to have you stand up. Are you here? Okay. he gave me a handwritten note here, and I thought I could read it, but I can't. But the other recognition that we received was what for the Main Street program? He's been a great partner. And there's a lot of excitement. The Urban Renewal Agency has been given storefront parks, storefront grants to help storefronts. We awarded 3 of them at the last City Commission meeting. And we wish we had more money to actually contribute to that, but people down there have noticed this major improvement. Trying to, I guess, move through here faster. Urban Renewal Agency, we've got 2 major proposed projects I think you all know called the Coves Project and the Rivers Project. The Coves Project, I think partially because of, well, almost solely because of the tremendous recession, the kinds of plans that they had there probably aren't working that well, and they're trying to, they've gotten an extension up through October to identify financing, and they'll also be looking for probably additional different kind of nature of structures that they'll be doing. The Rivers Project, Commissioner Rocky Smith at the last Urban Renewal Commission meeting put forward a motion to invite CenterCal to bring in their draft development agreement to the Urban Renewal Commission so that we can get the ball rolling on that particular project. And that passed. There's not unanimity. I think everybody knows there's not unanimity on the members of the commission on that particular project, but those that are interested in that project, look at what's happening as it evolves, make your voices known. And well, let's see. There's a few other things we need to do. We have concept plans for the Beaver Creek area around the college, Beaver Creek, and also Park Place. But annexations in the recent years have failed dramatically. And I think they've failed dramatically because people don't see the point in bringing in new lands when we're not building new housing, and we've seen housing projects stop dead, and some of them left unbuilt. We even had an annexation of just less than an acre that only passed by 52%. So there is kind of, I think, an anti-growth sentiment in the city as a whole, particularly in terms of residential property. We'd like to work with the college and with the high school to try to identify the kinds of employment areas that can be built out along the industrial employment lands around the college. And we need to move on this particular area. And I think with that, although I've got other points here, I don't want to continue rambling. I know Amber got very upset with me when I was at the end when I was of the chamber dinner, when I had Alice up there and I was talking about her and I was talking about her and I was talking about her and I was talking about her. But she was a tremendous mayor in these last 12 years. Many of the projects that we've had come forward have really required lobbying, talking to state representatives, talking to congressional representatives from the state, talking to the governor. And it was through this tremendous tireless work that she was able to do this. And even though she chose not to come to this particular event, I just wanted to know she's been a tremendous mayor. And I hope everybody recognizes her input. I should say, I mentioned a lot of departments heads and so forth, and I was trying to figure out what to say about David Frazier, our city manager, especially since he wasn't here. But of course, these projects are coming forward under his direction and so forth, and he has made this tremendous effort to get the Citizen Involvement Council going again, our neighborhood associations. He has senior staff members attending these meetings so we get direct feedback on the issues to him that these are going on. With that, she's about to kick me off. And anyway, I don't know. What I was trying to do, I was trying to stall for time. I figured if I took up enough time, there'd be no more. I wouldn't have to answer these questions that are coming this way. Thank you.
But I just want to say thank you, Mayor Neely, for being part of this.
Thank you.
Addressing this body and, frankly, everyone in the city and taking a leadership role for our city.
Well,
thank you very much. Act like that. Mr. Neely, Mayor Neely, after the rivers, oh, no, I should do this one first. What do you see as the steps that need to be taken in order to approve the Rivers project?
It's simply a fact that some of our commissioners that ran on an anti-Rivers platform. I don't think that'll be the major obstacle. I think one of the major obstacles is going to be to those people that in general in the city oppose the Rivers project to explain the kind of financing. It's going to be a partnership between the city and CenterCal to be able to go forward on this. The citizens, of course, were contributing to that landfill for many, many years, so we're all responsible for the problem that's there. And we're just going to have to recognize, in order to make this a buildable site, the city is going to have to invest money. But the money that's going to be invested is not tax monies that we are currently paying. It's going to be through the increased tax increment that occurs at that site, the taxes that, in fact, are generated by this project. And I think a lot of the opposition does not, well, I'm not talking about the commission opposition, but the opposition in the city on the part of citizens doesn't recognize that fact. And I think there's an educational process that has to be gone through, and I think that's one of the challenges that we're going to strive to meet over this period of time.
Thank you. And this next question is nicely timed, but it was from two different tables. After the Rivers is developed, how will the city partner with the Chamber and Main Street to promote the entire city as an economic destination?
Actually, it's been kind of interesting because we've had several businesses that come forward to support the Rivers project. I've talked to probably the two longest-term continued family businesses in Oregon City. I've talked to Tom Bush, talked to Jerry Hopp's Upholstery and Bush Furnishing. They're in favor of this project. Their feeling is we've got to have people coming to this area. The project that's coming forward is going to attract many, many tens of thousands of people, and even if 1 or 2% of them decide to come down to Main Street, that'll be a great benefit. But we're going to try to look at our whole trolley system operating to serve that area, bringing people down into Main Street. And I think that's one of the major ways we can do it. But other ways is perhaps we can develop visuals at the site that indicate what is available at Main Street, either on that site or on sites that are in fact currently owned by either the city or the Urban Renewal Agency. And we do have city-owned sites down there too. So we recognize that as being important. There is this bottleneck. We recognize that. You've got Washington Street going across a narrow bridge, and there's really no other access to Main Street other than that one. But we're going to do our best to address that particular issue.
Okay, and we'll send one more question at you. How will Oregon City attract major development when so many on the commission seem to be against major development?
Oh, that's kind of a difficult one for me to answer. I'm not opposed to it, but we've directed our attention to the rivers. I think there's probably unanimity on the need of developing employment lands around the college, and it's a case of us actually, as I say, working with the college, working with the working school district too, because the high school is there. I think it has tremendous possibilities of internships for our students. Maybe job bases when they come directly out of the school system, and I think that ought to be our focus. I am certain that probably every member of the City Commission will be in support of that effort.
And then there was one other question regarding how do we assure the continued good works of the Main Street program, but the end-all be-all is let's get that EID passed.
That's right. That is right.
Is there anything else you'd like to?
Well, I'd just like to thank you all for the opportunity of staying here, and for those remaining past the time and paying the parking tickets and so forth. I really appreciate you being here. Chamber is a great organization. My business is a member of it, and I've been active in some of the activities of the Chamber. It's a wonderful organization. It's a wonderful for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And now for a few thank yous. Thank you, Melody Ashford, for running our cameras from Willamette Falls Media Center. Thank you, Chris and Michelle Small, Pacific Crest Grand Ballroom, for your assistance and your serving, your presence here. Portland Catering Company, thank you for a delicious meal. Chamber Board of Directors, thank you for doing what you do to lead our chamber. Thank you, PGE, for your sponsorship today and continued involvement. Our city staff, and so many others. It takes all of you to make this all work. And finally, Julie and Karen, thank you so much. And that concludes the State of the City luncheon. Have a great day, stay dry, and get those parking tickets paid promptly.